Monday, the 2nd of September.
November.
Sorry?
November.
What did I say?
September.
Oh, sorry. November, of course. In line with government guidance, this meeting will not be held in public for social distancing reasons, but we're allowed to hold the meeting remotely. And this meeting is available for public viewing. I would like to remind all participants that you have had rules around how this meeting will be run, and please abide by those. It will be more difficult to manage digitally than in person. I hope that internet connections hold up. In the case that my internet connection runs out, the Vice Chairman, Ken Galati, will take over until I can reconnect, which I hope won't happen. Before we start, I will introduce the officers who will be presenting reports to us today, followed by members of the committee in this meeting. We have Zena Curry, Area Highways Manager, Ricky Hill, Parking Projects Team Leader, Jess Lee and colleagues from the Community Partnership and Engagement Team, who are helping to support and facilitate this meeting today. I will read out the members of the committee now, and when I introduce you, please do indicate that you are here, but maybe put your cameras on just for a brief second so that we have confirmation of who is present for this meeting. Ken Galati.
Doesn't look like he's in the meeting yet. Barbara.
He's my vice chair. Jeff Harris.
Detail.
Natalie Bramall.
Present, Chairman.
Bob Gardner. Oh no, he's apologies. Silly Grant Duff.
Present, Chairman.
Kay Hammond.
Present, Chairman.
Nick Harrison.
Present, Chairman.
Graham Knight.
Present, Chairman.
Gemma Adamson. Rod Ashford.
I'm here, Chairman.
Michael Blacker. Mark Brunt.
Present, Chairman.
Keith Foreman. Keith Foreman.
Yes, here.
Steve Colker.
All present and correct, Chairman. Thank you.
Ruth Ritter.
Yes, I'm present, Chairman. Thank you.
Tony Schofield. Tony.
Present, Chairman.
Rachel Turner.
Present, Chairman.
Christopher Winnie.
Present, Chairman. I don't know whether you can hear me. I can't see anything, but there we are.
Yes,
I
can hear you.
can't see anything either.
In terms of voting on items of this meeting, at the end of the discussion on each item, I will ask committee members if they are in support of the recommendation. I will assume members are in support of the recommendations unless you indicate otherwise or have indicated on the chat function that you are not in support of the recommendation. And there will be plenty of time for you to do this. I advise all members to use the chat box to indicate at any point if you wish to speak or the raise hand button. It will be noted by the chairman and or committee manager that you wish to speak. Please note this meeting is being streamed live via a webcast. You can find the webcast via a link on the local committee meeting web page or the Surrey County Council website. For members of the public who have joined us in this meeting because you have submitted a petition or question, Once your item has finished, you can leave the meeting by hanging up from the call. Apologies, Jess.
Sorry, you've got a couple of hands up at the moment. You've got Jonathan and Steve have both got their hands up.
Jonathan?
Just to say I'm present here as well, Chairman.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Who else has got their hand up?
Steve did, but I think he's put it down now. I don't know if he's still got something to say.
Jonathan?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, minutes from the previous meeting. Are the minutes from the previous meeting on the 2nd of March agreed?
Agreed.
We've got some hands up again, Barbara. So Jonathan and Natalie have got their hands up.
Jonathan?
Thank you.
Yes, Jonathan.
The minutes presumably also have actions attached to them, but the action tracker at the end of the agenda doesn't have any actions arising from these minutes. Do you want us to raise the actions now that aren't in the tracker for discussion later, or are you happy for us to discuss them later?
Jess, what do you think?
It might be better to do it later when we get to the decision tracker, if that's okay.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Jonathan?
Thank you.
Okay. Natalie?
Chairman, in the petition with regards to roads around St John's Church, in the final paragraph of the response, the area highways manager said that if the part-time signalling signage was not working, it should be reported. It has been reported and it is still not working, apparently due to funding. Now, I'd really like that to be discussed further, but I'm happy to wait until the end of the meeting to take that forward, if that suits you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine, actually. Any other comments? Do I have any other hands up?
Jonathan, I don't know if you put your hand back up again, or if you just didn't lower it from before.
Jonathan?
No, it's gone now. No, we're all good now, Barbara.
Okay, then. Apologies. I think I jumped, didn't I?
Yeah, so apologies. We just had one apology from Bob Gardner.
Okay. Are there any declarations of interest? None. Item 4. Chairman's announcements. First thing I would like to say is to thank Jeff Harris, the former chairman, for all his hard work and dedication and effort that he actually put into this committee. So thank you, Jeff, very much. Members, community allocations, the applications are currently open. Each county council has 5,000 for 2020-21 to help residents, voluntary and community organisations deliver activities that benefit local people in their neighbourhoods. Online applications are open until the 29th of January 2021. And I also have asked Zuli to give us a brief update on where we are on Reigate Hill. And, you know, we won't be taking questions on her, what she has to say, but she's going to put up a link where members can put questions in. Okay, over to you, Zuli.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As members can see on the screen, I'm referring to the roadworks, which you will be aware have already started back on September the 6th. They are progressing well, they are on time, and as it says there, they are due to finish on the 11th of December. And I just wanted to summarise to members how we have been communicating with residents and others who are not so local on the works and what is involved in terms of diversions and traffic management. Also on the screen, I would like to point out to everybody that you have the web address for the 8217 website, where frequently asked questions are regularly uploaded. So typically, if you have a question, please check that web page first. The likelihood is that it has been considered before and there is a comprehensive answer. By the same token, if you wanted to communicate directly with the team, you have an email address on the screen, and that is the best point of contact on any matters in relation to this work. If I can have the next slide, Caris, please. The next slide just shows you photos illustrating the progress that has been made. I'm due to visit the site tomorrow. David White, who's the site manager, unfortunately his little daughter has a temperature, so he's having a COVID test, so I won't quite do it tomorrow, but I'm hopeful to do it this week. But that shows you the magnitude of the work we are doing in terms of rebuilding the wall, but also rebuilding all the support for the wall. If I can have the next slide, Caris. I would remind members that no serious maintenance work has been done on this wall since it was originally built in 1972. When I say serious maintenance, I mean substantial, as it is being done now. The reality is that the concrete barrier that we had temporarily for over a year, as member will remember, was there just as a protection more than anything for pedestrians, to indicate the footway wasn't safe, but it wasn't as a protection in case of vehicle impact, should somebody stray off the road and towards the wall. The structure has been degraded due to use. As you know, it's a very intensely used main road, the 8217, and the reasons for the work is really that the road needs to remain safe to all road users. So it was imperative that we started it, and it is imperative that we now finish it. The next slide, please, Caris. What we have done from the beginning, and this started back in the summer, we knew very well that the works were substantial and they were likely to cause disruptions in the network. And so we developed a communications plan, and particularly with the highways communication team. This is a dedicated team within our highways department. And communications started back in August, various medium, as you can see there, leaflets, signs, Facebook, Twitter, in addition to, for members, the weekly highways bulletin. We've also contacted, or the team has also contacted, the local councillors, the county councils most directly affected, and the Royal Alexandra and Albert School. Your members would also be aware there are 14 extra advisory signs in the wider area, precisely to avoid heavy goods vehicles using unsuitable roads. That cannot be avoided in the case when they need access to those roads, but generally they are proving effective in reducing the amount of usage of these roads on the part of heavy goods vehicles. There is a diversion in place, as members are aware. It is long, but the reason that diversion is long is because it's a like-for-like replacement of the section of road which is now closed. In other words, it is an A-road diversion designed for all vehicles, and that includes heavy goods vehicles. Any other diversion, more local, would not have been suitable for all vehicles. Of course, it means that local residents and local traffic still can take alternatives. Next slide, please, Caris. Just to illustrate the efforts that have been made on the part of the team in order to accommodate needs, we have had residents in Reigate Hill who needed crane access in their private property, and this needs have to be attended by the site manager and our own program manager, David White, and it takes a bit of time to resolve, but as you can see, the team are keeping well on top of this. We've allowed crane access within 12 hours of request. Heavy goods vehicles access to to Gatton Bottom took us 1 day to organise. There is substantial machinery, as you know, so it takes a bit of time to organise all this. And of course, all along, we must be mindful that if there are emergency works on the part of utility companies, that also needs to be organised. And in the case of emergency works that cause further road closures, they cannot be avoided when they are an emergency. The last slide, please, Carries. This is just gives a very quick summary on the number of inquiries we have had. I think the communications plan, from my perspective, has been successful. If you consider the number of inquiries that we have received, those are inquiries we've received directly and dealt with. That is the Highways Communications team. Most of the inquiries have been to do with access, as you can expect it, and particular where members of the public have observed heavy goods vehicles in unsuitable roads. But that's what the extra advisory signage is there for, and obviously we hope that it proves a deterrent for the most part. Carries, if you can kindly go back to the first slide, so just to remind members that they can use the website for further information, and also if you have any specific queries, please send them to that email address. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Zully. Item 5, we have petitions. Now we have 4 petitions, and we will take these in the order in which they were received. Petition to include Woodhatch Crossroads in planned safety measures, A217 Hawley to Reigate. Is Miss Pryor on the call?
No. She isn't, no.
She isn't? No. Okay. Okay. I'll, yes, as divisional member, of course, you know, I fully support this. It's my priority, the Woodhatch Junction, and I'm really happy that highways are still looking for actively looking for funding to deal with this. And over to Zena, if she needs to say anything.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I see that there is one hand up.
Okay.
Is that regarding to the...
Yes, I'm really sorry, but I don't appear to have seen the officer's response. I think it's probably on a supplementary agenda, but on ModGov, there's no supplementary agenda displaying that I can see.
Have you refreshed it? Because I've got it open on ModGov. It is on ModGov. If you refresh your ModGov page, you should be able to get it. It is on there.
Okay, leave that with me. I'll have a look. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Hammond, if I may just give you a brief update. We appreciate that there's long-standing issues with the right-hand turn and congestion and safety concerns there. Unfortunately, it was not possible to include the junction within the safety bid. However, an additional bid has been put in to the Department for Transport in terms of the pinch point at that location, where at the same time the turning the right-hand turn would also be addressed as part of that bid. But unfortunately, we haven't yet received information about how successful that expression of interest is, but I'm happy to share with you, if you would like, the details of that bid. Thank you.
Zena, can I ask you, actually, can something be done about the potholes? It's in a dreadful state at the moment. I was going to send you an email, actually, but can you please get somebody to have a look at it?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I will pass that on to the team that does the highway safety inspections and the fixing of potholes that meet the intervention level. I'm not suggesting for a moment that you do that yourself, but residents can also report on our website is much improved. You can report a pothole there as well. So, but I will certainly push that forward for you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Then we move on to the second petition to install a zebra crossing on Linkfield Lane, Flint Close Corner. Is the petitioner on the call?
No, they're not.
No. Natalie, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Chairman. There are already two zebra crossings on Linkfield Lane, which is a very long road, one by St Matthew's School and one by St Joseph's School, just before St Joseph's School if you're coming from Raffles Bridge. The problem with having a zebra crossing, as has already been evidenced in the officer's comment, is that that's a very dangerous bend there, and it just would not be possible to have the stopping distance to have a zebra crossing in that area. So I'm pleased that officers will be looking at an informal crossing, so that won't be a zebra crossing. That could be a curb build out or something. So thank you for the officers for looking at some possible extra things that we could do in that area. Thank you.
Sina, do you have anything to add?
No, I thank Mrs Bramhall for her comments. Thank you.
No, we have her hand up, do we?
Yes, Natalie, I don't need to put it back up again.
Yeah. Petition 3.
Sorry, Barbara, just before you move on, there is actually something to agree. It's on the screen. If members, you can just check if members are in agreement of the recommendations.
Agreed.
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 Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Right, we have the third petition is to place speed humps, a camera and a 20 miles per hour speed limit on Gatton Park Road, Red Hill. Is the petitioner here?
They aren't, but I think they've given something to Natalie to say on their behalf.
Okay, Natalie.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a response from the petitioner, and then I'd like to give my own response at the relevant time afterwards. Thank you. The petitioner, Mrs Hymas, has asked me to thank myself. Clearly, both I and the many people who signed this petition are very disappointed. Your proposed measures are not going far enough, and our feeling is too many other existential factors and procedures are being placed ahead of what should be a priority, making the road safe for all users. There is clear evidence that the road is dangerous and becoming increasingly so. With regard to personal injury claims forming the basis for Surrey Police's support for a camera, do you not consider the mental scars that are left behind? Hearing yet another telltale bang, wondering what you will find. The road may be a busy A road, but that shouldn't mean we just have to put up with poor driving as one of those things. Having a car end up in your neighbour's front garden, only stopped by our brick wall from ending up in her house, is traumatising and unforgettable. We are lucky that my husband wasn't killed on the evening of the 2nd of October 2020. If he had gone out to our car 2 minutes later, he wouldn't be here now. Cars in front gardens has happened twice since February 2019, negating the out-of-date survey from 2017. With regard to the emergency services, their use of our road must be balanced against our daily reality. I don't think it is going too far to point out that not putting in calming measures because of their need is actually enabling dangerous driving on this stretch. I know other busy roads have calming measures. Bletchingley Road in Merstham is one of them. If the emergency services argument against is that they need a clear run, then perhaps using this criteria, no side roads should allow double parked cars, this being an impediment to emergency vehicles too, arguably more so. The speed survey from June 2017 is out of date. The incidence of speeding cars has increased massively since then. This is why the petition has received such support from the community. We live with it, we see it, and we drive along here. The speed is particularly intense out of rush hour or when the schools are not in session. They bomb along because they can, knowing full well there is no deterrent. The road is far too dark at night, which doesn't deter dangerous driving, the dark road adding to the feeling that they won't get caught. That it isn't a residential area that is acceptable to speed. We've seen no sign of the police speed watch since the evening of October the 2nd, despite Councillor Bramwell's best attempts. This is not good enough with the amount of speeding cars that use this area. What I remind you is it's a residential road. It is pure luck that no one has been killed or seriously injured so far along this stretch. This luck will run out. Luck always does. The time to act is now. Prevent someone being killed rather than acting when it is too late. Thank you for considering our petition. With sincere wishes, Kay Hymas. So that's from the petitioner, Chairman. And I'd just like to add my own words after a very, I thought, positive meeting with the area highways manager, Mrs. Curry, with Duncan Knox from the accident prevention team, Mark Borrett, and also Duncan Brown from Surrey Police, and the cabinet member Matt Furness. A number of things have come forward, and they were in the officer's response, which I think is helpful, to get the VAS cameras aligned, the VAS signs aligned, and also to there is one light out, so I believe Skanska are already onto this. So thank you for that. But I'd like to ask Ms. Curry, Mark Borrett was to arrange a new speed survey with the new speed cameras that you can put on the traffic lights. What progress has been made on that count, please? Duncan Brown from Surrey Police was to assess the road with a view to arranging for more frequent police presence. He actually said he'd be doing that really quickly. Doesn't look like that's happened. Could you update me on that, please? And also, if both yourself and Anne-Marie could let me know where we are on getting some of the trees cut back, so that takes some of the tree coverage away and stops it being so dark during the day. And if you could let me know what action's been taken there, please, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Zena, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mrs. Bramhall. Yes, it was a very productive meeting, and hopefully for Mrs. Hymas and the rest of the residents that we found a positive way forward. So in terms of the actions from my team, we have put forward for both Skanska to cut back vegetation around the streetlights, and for our own maintenance team to go out to look for cutting back vegetation. As you say, it has impeded the look and the feel of the speed of the road. We're highlighting the issues that have been raised about the road as well at the next road safety working group and at the speed management meeting. So I haven't got an update yet, I'm afraid, on how the police have got on with programming into having their additional speed assessment, and also about the speed sensors to put onto the lights. But as you said, the plan is to have that undertaken at pace, and unfortunately a couple of those officers have been on leave over half term, and so I haven't been able to get an update as yet, but I will get an update back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. I see we have some hands up. Mark, is your question on this particular petition, and is it a new comment?
It is a new comment, Chairman, and I share the petitioner's concern about the speed on this road, and I also note that I was going to raise the issue of vegetation, because we've certainly got vegetation that's been, and trees that have been allowed to grow on the grass verge
which doesn't help. But the additional point I was going to add is we've also historically had cars using the side of the road towards the park for parking, and close to the VAS sign as well. And I wonder what officers can do about trying to prevent parking on the grass verge there, because I think it does block the VAS sign, but it also means that you're restricting the width of the road, because sometimes they're parked full on the grass verge and sometimes they're halfway on the grass verge. So I wonder if officers can look at that as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ken Galati, do you have a question, a new question?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. No, I just wanted to apologise. I arrived just a few minutes ago at the meeting. I'm afraid I had connection problems that I simply couldn't overcome without help. So I'm here now and apologise for being late.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, do you have something new to add?
Yes, I would just like to ask how long it will take to bring something about, and whether our ITS scheme system is is fit for purpose, because my concern is at the moment we have this. If we vote on these recommendations, this will go onto a list. The list is not in the public domain. We don't know how long time it will take to get to a feasibility, let alone for something to happen. If this was a waiting list to get onto a bed in hospital, you'd expect it to be dealt with quickly. So my question is there something needed more fundamental to make sure we've got enough money so we can actually deal with this? Because otherwise this could go on and on and on and not dealt with as quickly as the speeding drivers.
Thank you, Jonathan. Natalie, do you have something new to add?
I'd like to come back after Zena, please, Barbara.
Okay, over to you, Zena.
Thank you very much, Chairman. If I may come back on the issue about the parking. Thank you very much, Councillor Brunt, for the suggestion about dealing with the parking as part of this. So if you like, the first step is looking through the Road Safety Working Group on what the possible solutions could be to the variety of issues that are on the road. That's, if you like, our first step, and that will definitely be put forward as part of those suggestions, and thank you very much for those. That leads on, I suppose, to the comments made by Mr. Essex, and I appreciate those comments as well. I know that it can feel that schemes can last a long time on the ITS list, but we do work in close collaboration with colleagues in our Road Safety Working Group and also with the Borough Council in terms of any SIL funding that might be available, and also what safety funding might be available as well. So we do look at all avenues of how we can get these schemes up of the starting block, so to speak. Now, in terms of absolute safety, you're absolutely right. We do an assessment, the Casey scoring, as you know, for prioritisation for schemes. And safety is the most critical part of that, personal injury accidents. But it is acknowledged on this particular road that there's been a lot of very traumatic damage-only accidents. And of course, seeing any accident is traumatic, but having vehicles coming into your property is a very upsetting experience, I'm sure, for anyone who's had to go through that. So that is why this particular road is being pushed forward, even though it does not have the same history of personal injury accidents, because it is acknowledged that that has been a very traumatic experience. So in terms of the ITS list, that shows our intent. Our intent is to do something about that road, and we do ask members to agree that this particular road could go onto the ITS list, because that then enables us to go out to try and find other funding. Thank you.
Natalie.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Zena, for that response. I do think I just need to flag here that I think we really need to keep on at the police, quite frankly. The police, as much as they probably won't want me to say this, were factors in both of those accidents. And I think we'll just leave it at that. So I really do think the onus is on the police, because the police said at our meeting that they didn't even know it was a problem in the road. Now, we've been raising this with them for a number of years. So I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest, because Duncan Brown was very positive at the meeting, which we had and was arranged very, very quickly. And for nothing to have been done since then, I think, you know, we can do as much as we can do at Surrey County Council, and our officers can do as much as they can do. But we really need some action here by the police. So I really do think that we should make it quite clear to them that we do expect them to stand up and be counted on this one. And I really won't give up trying to get a resolution to these problems on behalf of my residents in Gatton Park Road. Thank you.
Zena, do you have anything to add?
No, Chairman. I just thank Mrs. Bramhall for her comments. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to...
Barbara, sorry, there's just a couple of recommendations there for the committee to agree.
Do we agree these recommendations, committee?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. Number 4 petition is to completely resurface Wellisford Close. Is Dr. Harvey on the call?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can I just say, I'm inviting you to introduce your petition to the committee, and you have 3 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Brilliant. I'm also on webcam. I don't know if you can see me at all.
I can see the top of your head.
I'm trying to demonstrate the road condition behind me. I'm a resident here in Wellsford Close, which is a small double-ended cul-de-sac at the south of Banstead. I moved here 3 years ago, and one of the first things we noticed, obviously, was the poor condition of the road. And if you can see behind me, you'll notice that there is almost no road surface at all whatsoever at this part of the close. We've recently had 32 potholes filled in at the start of the close. And having discussed this with the local residents, the oldest, longest-standing resident has been here 28 years, cannot remember this road surface ever being any different. And in fact, a Freedom of Information request that we submitted to the council shows that this road has never been resurfaced since it was first built in the 50s. So it's not a question of if this road needs resurfacing, and indeed the officer's response indicates that of course it does need resurfacing. It's not fit for purpose. It's a question of when. And the issue I think that the residents have unanimously petitioned for is not just the quality of the road surface, it's the timing of it. We are a low priority part of the road network. We have no through traffic, and there's been no safety incidents reports. However, this cannot continue being bumped to the bottom of the list every single year in consideration for road surfacing, which so clearly needs to be performed. So I guess the petition is just to re-raise this issue, which has been raised numerous times at this committee before, I understand, and just to see, surely there should be some time limit for how long a low priority issue can remain on a pending list. Can it really be 50 years? And I end my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Ken, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, as you will know, I've raised this road from time to time because I have to say, quite frankly, it's one of the worst, if not the worst road in my division. Now, I know there are particular problems with concrete roads, which I'm sure Zena will mention in a few minutes. but the particular, apart from being a concrete surface, which is where the tarmac has eroded, it is also on a slope. Now, being on an incline makes it quite dangerous, certainly in cold weather and rainy weather. And whilst I accept that it's been on the list for a long time and hasn't been a priority because it's a little used road, it nevertheless ought to have some priority by virtue of the time upon that it's been waiting. And I would add my endorsement to the petition that it really is about time that something serious was done about this road rather than just tinkering with it.
Thank you, Ken. Zena, do you have?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Harvey, as well. It was really interesting to see the live webcam. It's a really interesting use of the technology, and thank you for that. As Mr. Galati has said, this is a concrete road underneath with a bound material on top, and like many roads in that same situation, the road underneath is still strong. It's not causing a safety hazard. However, aesthetically, it does not look nice. And I appreciate that yourself, along with other residents, would very much like to see it resurfaced. Now, any surface treatment that's available at the moment would only last maybe 2 years, 2 to 5 years. And I know that that's very disappointing, but we can only continue to raise the issues with the road. I know that we've had quite a lot of potholes that have been filled, particularly around the entrance to the cul-de-sac. And I know that Mr. Galati has been championing for the road to be resurfaced. If it's going to have a full resurface, it is incredibly expensive to take up concrete. It's also very noisy and very disruptive as well. But nationally, engineers are looking at new treatments that could be potentially possible for concrete roads. Unfortunately, we don't yet have a really viable option that is most also cost effective. So I know it's disappointing that we don't have a date for when any surface treatment could be for your road, but it will continue to be put forward for consideration for future programmes. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. Do any other members want to add comments? New comments, I must say. Okay. And the local committee is asked to note the officer's response. Noted, I expect. Now we move on to public questions. We've received one question. The question and response are published in the supplementary papers. The response has been circulated. Is Mr. Jessup on the call?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Do you have another supplementary question?
Yes, it's actually the part of the original that wasn't really touched on in the answer. Obviously, the County Council launched its cycle strategy in 2014. Locals keep on pushing for more cycle infrastructure and regularly get told that there isn't the finance available. Then obviously we have had the government now pushing for more cycling, providing short-term finance. And if you look at the response, there were no plans. So they had to hurry through what was done, and it hasn't necessarily met what the government is looking for. And consequently, the County Council missed out on about £750,000 worth of funding.
Mr. Jessup, can I ask, do you have a question, a particular supplementary question?
Yes.
Please?
Is there likely to be any link to the new council property, offices and school in Reigate, and if so, what kind of timescale?
Thank you. Sina?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Jessup. As you may be aware, that question has been raised also by Mr. Essex, I believe potentially on your behalf. And as I have responded to that question already, is that the questions about active travel links to the new building at Woodhatch, or the existing building, the new use for that building in Woodhatch, are still being considered. It has not yet come through the planning process, but I have put forward the suggestions, and there are plenty of suggestions that are already underway for developing to be part of that process. So yes, it is going to be taken into consideration. Thank you. It is part of that planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. Mark, do you have a new question, something that hasn't been covered already?
Yes, Chairman. And I have to say I was a little disappointed with the answer to this question, partly because I think it missed out some opportunity to highlight work that is already going on. So, for example, the local the LCWIP, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan is something that it has begun with £20,000 worth of funding from the Borough Council. And I think this is one of the things that was missing and has been missing across Surrey, is actually a plan to work to. And I really want to ask Zena Curry, in terms of how this having an LC whip in place will actually support the development of future cycling and walking infrastructure, and how this might have helped us with the funding that came forward from the government. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Zena, shall I take the question from Jonathan and you can do them in one go?
Yes, I think that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan.
Thank you. I just had two follow-ups, if I may. One is that there was a question asked and a response given about the lack of time to respond, but we as a local committee had set up a sustainable travel task group last year, and we did have council meetings scheduled during this time which were cancelled. Why was it not possible to use the sustainable travel task group which we'd set up to at least get views of the range of councillors who said that they were interested in contributing on this? And secondly, just following up on the point made by Zena, which I didn't ask actually on behalf of Bill, but at the last council meeting it was committed that there would be look at a sustainable travel plan for how we limit the impact of locating Surrey County Council's new offices on Cockshot Hill in Reigate, which is quite hard to get to really if you want to get there safely, walking or cycling or on a quick bus from Redhill. And it was, I think, quite important that we make the plan, get the views of the public and councillors this time round, not like this time when it wasn't possible, but before we start moving into that building next year. So I just wondered, if you can update us as to when that sustainable travel plan will be consulted to the public and councillors, so that we can all have our say and make sure some improvements happen before the building's occupied.
Thank you, Jonathan. Shall we take Zully's? Zully has her hand up. Do you have to take it as well?
Yes, very quickly. Thank you, Chairman. Just to remind members, both of the borough and the county, that in relation to our new offices in Woodhatch, full council has heard that there will be a full transport plan for the new offices. It is absolutely the case that all means of sustainable transport will be looked into, from trains and taking into consideration the Red Hill train station, which obviously caters status for lines going north-south, and then the Reigate train station for lines going east-west, as well as the walking routes and as well as cycling and the access to the site itself. So members are well aware that this is under consideration. I just wanted to remind all this is the case, and I'm sure Zina is able to give us more details. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Zulik. Zina.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for all the members' comments. If I do them in reverse order, perhaps, starting with the Woodhatch building, you're absolutely right, Mrs. Grant Duff, that there's going to be a full transport plan. It is still too soon to give all the details of that yet. I think it's still in consideration. At the moment, the building is still to be used from January in the same way that it always was for what it has planning permission for. So I don't think that needs to be done before January. But what will need to be, what is being considered is for the new buildings that will be on the site, so the new school and the other facilities that are planning to be put in onto that site. So the situation in terms of travel will be no different from January to how it had been when the building was the Cannon building. So I think we just need to have a look at that. But I have been asked about cycle access and pedestrian access. As you know, that there are pavements on the Cupshot Hill. There's a pedestrian crossing there as well. I appreciate that that's not necessarily the facilities that people might want, but those will be developed as we go forward. In terms of the LCWIP, you're absolutely right, Councillor Brunt. Those are the core for understanding what's required, where we would be with the different options, what the community want as well. And we're looking at active travel in terms of how this all fits into the local transport plans and the local transport strategies as well. So if you like, the LCWIP together with active travel and any policies that come out of that, plus the climate emergency, tree policies, the whole of all the policies all come under the umbrella of the local transport plans. And the LCWIP is absolutely core to that in finding a way forward for what's our ethos, what the communities want, what is the way forward for cycling and walking. So it isn't just the cycling. But as you appreciate, there has to be a balance between active travel and other forms of transport. And thank you for the comments that have just come in on the chat. And you know, there's only so much road space, and communities will be looking at what are the priorities locally, how we're going to go forward. But you're absolutely right, the LCWIPs are core to that strategy. In terms of Mr. Essex, looking at the travel task group, that will all come through as part of that LCWIP as well, in terms of governance on that decision making. So yes, the sustainable transport plan, the travel task groups, the sustainability, that's all something that will be undertaken going forward. But that's not part of the emergency active travel that was right at the very start of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Zina. Right, shall we move on then? If everyone's happy with that. We have member questions. number 7. We received one written question. Councillor Winnie, you should have received your response. Do you have a supplementary question to ask?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman. I would thank the officer for her reply. However, motorists and residents have told me repeatedly that the pedestrian crossings being uncontrolled hold up traffic more often than the rail crossing itself. On school days at specific times in the morning and early afternoon, there is a continuous flow of mothers with children crossing and effectively closing the pedestrian crossing traffic. There is pollution, but that is the responsibility of Reigate and Banstead. The reply states, closing the rail crossing suggests the vehicle might be caught on the rail crossing. This isn't quite the case, Madam Chairman, because there are 4 gates to either side. They do not all close together, but one gate either side closes later to allow a vehicle to complete clearance of that crossing. Now, my combined question is, when was there last a check on these pedestrian crossings? What was this check? Was this check at the specific time on school days? Did that check include a video recording, please? If so, can I see a copy of the recording? Motorists and residents will wish to have some reassurance that action is being undertaken on this matter, please.
Thank you, Christopher. Zena?
I understand that Mrs. Grant Duff has her hand up. Perhaps if I sub up at the end. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Zilly.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much, Chairman. Whilst I appreciate the concerns of Councillor Winnie, as the divisional councillor, I have to say that I have not received direct communication with residents with specific concerns. It is true that when the schools are either a pick-up or set-down point, as you can imagine, there is a constant flow, but it is a well-respected pedestrian crossing. It is incredibly close to the level crossing with the ensuing dangers of the trains. So to have it signal in a way that risk vehicles being caught in the actual railway line, and then we could have a mass catastrophe, I find it incredibly difficult to envisage. I appreciate that Councillor Winnie wants more data, and perhaps that data exists, but for my personal experience, and I live very locally, as Councillor Winnie is perfectly aware, my personal experience that it's a very well-respected pedestrian crossing precisely because it is so close to the railway line. Thank you very much.
Zena. Thank you, Zena.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mrs. Grant Duff, and thank you, Councillor Winnie, for your question. Now, we have looked at the crossings. The crossing that is closest to the level crossing, we've got a series of them, haven't we? And we've got one outside the co-op, and that was put in as part of the planning permission for when the co-op was put in. If you imagine if that weren't there, you could have people just crossing the road at any point because they wouldn't have a preferred crossing. You would have far more impact on safety, as Mrs. Grant Duff has intimated. Now, we've had conversations with Network Rail about the zebra crossings. We don't have specific data, but we asked informally our colleagues in traffic signals what the delay time would be on a push button crossing, and they intimated to us that that would cause a delay that would be longer than the period of time for people crossing on a zebra, and that you could have it that the level crossing would come up, people would go forward, they'd come across a red light, they'd have to stop, and then that would back up over the level crossing, and that is what we've put into the response. It's about that stopping for the crossing, whereas on a zebra, when the people come off the train, they have cleared, this is our understanding, that they have cleared across before the level crossing comes up. Now, I can raise again with Network Rail about this. We could also see if we could have some form of monitoring cameras, but I understand from Mrs. Grant-Duff that that's not a road that we want to go down in terms of having cameras to assess what's happening with the timings of the level crossing. I appreciate that it's disappointing, but I think to be realistic, it's unlikely to ever pass safety audit to have a signalised crossing there. There isn't the space on either end for the poles, etc. Even if we had all the funding in the world, it's not something that we would consider to be safe and wouldn't pass safety audit. So I appreciate it's disappointing, but it's not an option that we're taking forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. Moving on to item 8, Reigate Town Centre speed limit reduction from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. And this is for decision. Zena, can you introduce your report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so
can I add that can we have questions early all together and then you can deal with them all at once? Does that sound fair, Zena?
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm only going to give a very brief introduction and to give an update on cost because all the information is I understand, in the report. So we were looking for a 20 mile an hour in Reigate Town Centre. So we're looking for support to be able to do this. This was something that we had wanted as part of the active travel, for the emergency active travel, and there was a temporary 20 miles an hour to support the pilot temporary cycle lane that was in Reigate Town Centre. That was taken down at the same time as the temporary pilot cycle lane, but it's come to light with consultation that we've undertaken on Commonplace that it's still a suggestion that is something that people would like, to be able to change the look and the feel of the town centre to support walking as well as cycling. Now, the temporary 20 miles an hour was estimated at £6,000, and that, I'm afraid, is the figure that was put into the report. I would like to be able to update that the permanent 20 is estimated at £13,000 because some of the signs have to go onto illuminated posts. That's what we need to do for something that is permanent rather than the temporary measure. So I would hope that you'll be able to support this measure, and I open to questions. Thank you.
Zully, would you like
Yes.
to say?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I want to thank Thina and Anne-Marie Hanan for putting these proposals together. As she says, as part of the active travel programme, there is a website where initiatives can be proposed, and as a result of that, we know there is good support from the public to go ahead with this. The speed surveys bear witness that we are within policy, and we have have also looked at implementing it with the support of Surrey Police, which it has to be had because they are the enforcement authority, and we now have all the pieces together to be able to come to the committee and ask the committee for support to go for a public consultation of 28 days where the public can express objections if they have any, and hopefully I expect there will be very few or none, and then we will go ahead with the implementation, and importantly the funding is there. So thank you to Zina and the team. Thank you, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Natalie?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not saying I'm not supportive of this. Please don't think that. But this is it's well known that the High Street in particular has very bad air quality because of all the traffic going very slowly through the town. Have we done any air quality investigations as to how this will be made actually worse? Because keeping the speed limit lower actually gives out more carbon. So I was just wondering whether anybody had looked at that. It might be safer, but as long as you're not walking or on a bike without a mask on, because that really could affect the air quality for the local residents that actually, many of whom actually live in the High Street. So just wondering whether you looked at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Michael Blacker.
Thank you, Chairman, very much. I'm not a great supporter of these 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. There's an absolute rash of them appearing all over the place. The police don't enforce them, and as Natalie has just said, it's only very late at night that people can actually get up to 30 miles an hour going through the High Street because it's very slow and nose to tail. And I would have thought that the money could be better spent elsewhere. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Rod Ashford.
Thank you, Chairman. I just sort of picking up, Michael just made a point, but my question is more direct. I noticed you said you were in consultation with Surrey Police, but this committee sees an awful lot of questions and petitions from local residents all over that really the answers come down to the fact that the police won't enforce. That could be anything from taxis coming into our area to parking on pavements, obstruction, all of the stuff that we rely on the police to enforce, and then bringing in this, which I also agree with Michael, driving through Reigate town centre at more than 20 miles an hour most of the day when there are lorries unloading and cars parking, pulling in and out of disabled bays all over the place, it slows the traffic down. So could we have some assurance that the police are in full agreement that they will enforce a 20 mile an hour speed limit? Otherwise, we're just wasting our time and money, as Michael suggested. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Over to you, Zina.
Madam Chairman, I wonder if I could comment. I've had held my hand up for a little while. Please.
Oh, you didn't raise your hand.
I did, yes.
Well, I haven't seen it, but carry on.
Well, I'll raise it again, madam.
Oh, you meant there. I was looking at the... Yes, carry on. Carry on, Christopher.
Thank you. I am a supporter of this, but I do very much take the point, do the police enforce? And Natalie raised a very good matter about air quality. However, it is my understanding that the Business Guild have been supporting this for some time, and I'm sure if this is agreed and there is public consultation, that they will reply. Whether or not they will have any comment to make about the increase from 6,000 to 13,000, I don't know. But with the concern expressed about enforcement and air quality, on balance, I would support this, and I look forward to hearing the result of the public consultation, and in particular, that from the Business Guild.
Thank you, Christopher. Zena?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you everyone for your comments. I hope that I've made notes on all of them, but please do come back to me if I've missed anything. One of the elements was about 20 miles per hour and about air quality. Now, as you know, the Borough Council do the assessments on and report on air quality, and one of our reasons for focusing on Reigate was because there is an air quality management area in the centre of Reigate. Now, we haven't got live monitoring of Reigate Town Centre at the moment. However, information that we have from the charity Living Streets is that in the right locations, 20 miles per hour does provide that better environment that encourages more cycling and walking. And we know that there is a pressure on public transport, particularly on buses at the moment because of reduced capacity for social distancing reasons. So part of the encouraging more walking and cycling is to provide an environment that makes it easier to walk and cycle. And 20 miles per hour, although not a measure on its own, but with everything else that there is in the town centre in terms of build-outs and crossings, etc., does help improve the environment and encourage more walking and cycling. And the more that we have that, then the ongoing consequence is that we would have reduced pollution from motorised vehicles. But of course, as with everything, it is a balance. But one at the moment where we're very aware that we need to encourage more people to walk and cycle wherever possible, particularly as we go into another lockdown. But in terms of ongoing having a permanent 20, we're very aware that the speed surveys on the town centre show that this meets with our policy of setting local speed limits. So it is enforceable because it meets with our policy. And the police don't come back and say that they endorse. What they say is that they don't object. So that's their language, if you like. So it is an enforceable 20 miles per hour because it meets with our setting local speed limits policy, which is in collaboration with the police and police standards. Now, in terms of the consultation, I absolutely agree the Business Guild is key, and they have intimated that they would like the town centre to be 20 miles per hour. It's known that having that better environment, you get more better footfall, more pedestrians, that's better for businesses. So that's part of why we are encouraging this and supporting it. So in terms of the costs, none of that cost is to be met by the local committee or any of the delegated budgets open to the local committee. This is part of the funding that was highlighted for Reigate at the very start of the Emergency Active Travel Fund. So it's essentially the funding that's there, it's available, and it is for Reigate. And this is one of the measures that is supported online from the Commonplace website that you can come from our Surrey County Council website. The 20 mile an hour is one of the measures that is very popular with residents and businesses. So I would ask very much that people would support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. I have Jeff, I think. Do you want to speak, Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. I've just put something on chat there. Nobody's mentioned it so far, but there is potential for residents and businesses to start their own community speedwatch scheme in and around the town centre. If they do that, that will not only collate what the problem is and the size of the problem, but also evidence it for police enforcement action and show that the community are involved in the enforcement themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ken? Ken?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sorry, it took me a while to click on again. There are 2 points I'd like to make, Madam Chairman. First of all, it's not entirely correct to say that no one can ever go down Reigate High Street more than 20 miles an hour anyway, because there are times, quieter parts of the day, when traffic has been held up coming up from Bell Street, is released by the traffic lights and is facing a relatively clear road, and people do sometimes, in those conditions, tend to go rather fast down the high street because they've got a clear road in front of them. But the second is a more subtle point about 20-mile-an-hour limits generally. If you're in a place where accidents can easily happen, like Reigate High Street, and you have an accident with someone who's been going down the street at 30 miles an hour, then immediately he's doing nothing wrong. Whereas if you have an accident with someone in a 20-mile-an-hour zone who's been doing more than 20 miles an hour when he shouldn't have been, then the onus shifts more onto the fact that he's been exceeding the speed limit, and that's an additional factor in the liability. So if we take the view that the high street is an area where more than 20 miles an hour is unsafe, we should say so and we should fix it.
Thank you, Ken. Over to Zena.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was just saying that, Mr. Galati, you had your hand up, but I see that you've taken that down again. Yes. Firstly, may I thank Mr. Harris for his comments about Community Speedwatch. You're absolutely right. That's a very useful tool, and the community can then be absolutely part of the participation with the police and the community in looking at the speeds within their community, and it's a very, very useful thing indeed. Thank you. So I see Mr. Winnie has his hand up as well. I would also like to thank Mr. Galati as well for his comments about the legal side. We're not saying that there are a lot of accidents in the high street, because generally we've got crossings, we've got a lovely environment in the Reigate town centre, but 20 miles an hour does help with giving that feel for a town centre that it really encourages people to be able to come in, enjoy the shops, enjoy and be able to use the businesses, and feel that there's not the traffic going at speed past them. Thank you. I welcome Mr. Winnie's Chairman, if Councillor Winnie wishes to ask a question. Thank you.
Yes, I didn't see him waving.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I would like to thank Zena for her rather well-worded comment about Reigate Town Centre. There's no doubt about it, unfortunately, that the use of A-boards can restrict pedestrian traffic on the pavements. If they're placed in such a way that a double baby buggy can be pushed easily without getting onto the road, so good, and certainly for older people who are in wheelchairs. So I would suggest that Zena might be able to discuss this with the relevant officers of Surrey County Council so that those traders that use A-boards could make sure they're positioned to cause the least problem on the pavements. It's a small but rather relevant matter for mothers with such double buggies or older people in wheelchairs. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Zena, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Winnie. We will. I'll pass that on to the relevant officer for checking on the aid boards in Reigate Town Centre. Thank you.
Thank you. All the recommendations are listed on the screen. If you'd like to have a look at them and then agree them or not agree them.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed. Right. Thank you. Now moving on to item 9, Eastgate one-way system. Zena, would you like to introduce this report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So what we're asking for is support to advertise the TRO to support a one-way system to enable these additional parking measures to be installed. This is all funded from Reigate and Banstead SIL funding that the local borough councillors and county councillor have been pushing for some time. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, would you like to speak on this? Nick Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, as Zena has mentioned, this has been a scheme that has been around for a while, originally suggested by the late Councillor Stead, and it is one that I think we want to go ahead with, despite the increased cost, which is somewhat disappointing, I must say. It's currently out for voting by the members of the Northwest panel, SIL panel. It's coming out of local SIL rather than the 85% global SIL. So I think if they approve it and fund it, then that is sufficient, and we should give it our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I see nobody has raised their hand, and we have the recommendations on screen. I'll give you a few moments to read them and then agree or disagree.
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10, the annual parking review. Ricky, would you like to introduce your report?
Yes, I'd be delighted to, Madam Chairman. We all know the parking reviews fairly well by now.
Yes.
We had over 350 different requests, which we've gradually sifted our way through. I tried to keep it as small as possible because I know budgets are very tight, but it still seems to have grown much bigger than I expected. But as you will have seen, the vast majority of it is sort of this essential road safety work, so double yellow lines where people really shouldn't be parking anyway. I would just point out, I think it's paragraphs 2.4 and 2.5 about some of the larger schemes we were asked to look at putting in, where funding was again an issue, but also we've said this before for the last couple of reviews, we don't want to be doing major schemes in small roads in isolation, but the situation is getting worse. I think that's one of the reasons the review ended up with so many sites, is because within Reigate and Banstead, within the borough generally, and particularly within the town centres, the critical point is almost being reached, where there's just too much traffic, too many cars and not enough space. And I noticed that the next item is about the parking task group and other task groups, but I think the task group will have a real job to do to try and deal with this, so that the town centres can have some major sort of parking controls put in place. But otherwise, yeah, you've all seen it. There is one other thing actually that I would like to add on, which wasn't included in the original report because it's sort of come up since then. Some of you will know that in Banstead High Street there is a new assisted crossing point for pedestrians. There's a build out on one side of the road and a new sort of tactile pavement on the other side. Unfortunately, where the tactile pavement is right outside the local Tesco Express, and they like to park there to load and unload their lorries, which of course is slap bang across the assisted crossing space, so not really ideal. What's come to light is a little way along the other side of the entrance to the Waitrose, which is next door, is a taxi rank, which the Borough Council are considering taking out. So what I would like to add on to this is that we will have, where the taxi rank is, we would turn that into a goods vehicle loading bay and introduce a loading restriction where the lorries like to stop and load at the moment, if that's okay. Otherwise, are there any questions?
Yes, we have Michael Blacker. Did you have your hand up, Michael?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yes, fine. I think the point I've made many times before, trying to control parking is a major issue in the borough, probably in Surrey. And before more and more restrictions are put in place, I would request that we find somewhere for people to park their cars, because cars, I'm afraid not bikes, are the lifeblood of this country, especially for our retail shops. And people need somewhere to park to take their shopping back to. And despite the current lockdown, it will come back. So that would be my request. Can we please look at finding ways of getting people to park, spaces for people to park, rather than keep introducing more and more restrictions? Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Galati.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ricky will know that I've been in, it's about the Banstead High Street loading bay proposal. Ricky will know that I've been in correspondence with them about this, and I am really cynical about the prospect of persuading commercial vehicle unloaders to park 20 or 30 yards away from the destination they wish to take their goods to. Whatever restrictions you put in, unless you actually have the police standing there saying you can't do this. I mean, there are other places in Banstead High Street, outside Boots, for instance, where they park across the build-out at peak times of day. They just don't care. And I really, although I know that Ricky has approached Tesco's, who have said their people will use the loading bay if it's available, I really have to say I'm cynical about what will happen if we designate that as a loading bay. I really don't think it's going to affect the situation at all. And if we do, then it should be for an experimental period to see what happens, because otherwise we're losing 2 parking spaces we could use for other purposes, which are, would be much better used for that if Tesco's don't use it. So yes, all right. We've had an exchange about this for some time. I know Ricky's convinced it'll happen. Let's try and see, but let's keep it under review if they don't use it.
Thank you. Ricky, are you happy for me to take all the questions at once at the beginning? Okay.
If they get too many, I'll let you know.
Mark.
Thank you. Oh, hold on. Thank you, Jim. Sorry, I thought I was on mute. I would like to thank the officers for these changes. I did have a couple of questions, if I may, on a couple in my ward. The first one is on their proposed new no waiting times on Rockshaw Road. The second option, which is around the restrictions between the 2 railway bridges, I completely support. It was the first one. It was the first item, and it appears first in the list, where we appear to have what would seem to look like random double yellow lines along the road, and I'd just like some more detail about why they are, why those lines are there rather than being a length. There's 3 lines that are separated out. That was one point. The other one I wanted to raise was with regarding to Brook Road. Again, I'm very supportive, and I know the residents will be because they campaigned for residents parking in Brook Road, so I'm very supportive of that. Living in a road that has resident parking at the moment, I know the value of that. But what I did want to ask, Ricky, was whether it would be possible to, rather than end the parking restrictions where the residents parking where he has ended it at the moment at the top of the road, there are only about half a dozen, if less, houses between as it goes round the corner onto Radstock and to where the park is. And I wonder whether it would be possible to move the restriction for the residents parking further round the corner, so that it basically incorporates the last house in that road. This would also help us to stop the parking of railway construction vehicles who ruin the pavement in that area for us, and the county council is forever having to restore the pavement. It would still give enough room for double yellow lines past the park, to give you enough space to have signage so people can see it's a clear demarcation from the no restriction to the restriction. I wonder if Ricky could consider that. Thank you, Chairman.
Ricky, would you like to answer them? Because I've got quite a few hands up. Or do you
Okay. Now I'll quickly go through these ones then. The first one about finding space and space for people to park in. Well, I absolutely agree with Councillor Blacker about that. That's one of the reasons that we have. I've tried to keep the new restrictions as far as possible, as short as possible, was because we don't have enough room for everybody that wants to park. And I think we all know that probably all the major towns could benefit from a new multi-storey car park. What the difficulty is, and I think the task for the task group will be to find out ways to, A, somewhere to put them, and B, how to pay for them. But I do quite agree. With regard to, the loading bay, if we did put it in, as I say, we put in a loading restriction where the lorry parks at the moment. That would be enforceable by the borough parking team rather than the police. It would be a civil offence. We would obviously have to see how it went, and yes, we don't want to have an empty loading bay that's never used. So clearly, yes, if it didn't work out, we would want to find some better use for that loading bay or that space. Rockshaw Road, the lengths of yellow line are essentially there as passing places to try and improve traffic flow, so that there's somewhere for cars to pull in to allow cars to go past in the other direction. We've sort of designed them as much as possible as well to try and help with driveways, so people can see coming in and out of their driveways, the cars not getting too close. Brook Road, I got a bit lost because you mentioned Radstock, I think, but did you mean Malmstone Avenue?
I did mean Malmstone Avenue, I apologise.
No, that's right. So effectively, you'd almost sort of take it up to where there is the little pinch point just past the last, just opposite the park sort of thing. I think, is that what you... the only thing about that is obviously there's yellow lines along the whole of that stretch already. We could put it in, but the houses along there have all obviously got plenty of off-street parking space as well, so they wouldn't be eligible for permits or anything. And with the fact that it's got yellow lines, I'm not sure how useful that would be. But I'd be interested to know what you thought about that.
Chairman, can I come back quickly on that?
Yes, very quickly, Mark, please.
You're right, and I'd forgotten about the existing double yellow lines there. It's really where people's second cars go. And that's what I'm thinking about, where those residents would be able, because some of those use the road, and it is not there to penalise residents. It's there to prevent the commuter parking. So it's just a thought.
Okay.
Thank you. Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Totally supportive of the ones in Hill West and Ray Common Division. So supportive of, it's a bit noisy. And totally supportive of the restrictions in London Road at the bottom of Colton Road and Mead through Essex Division. One thing I would like to say in support of Councillor Galati, I've been working with Ben Murray, as you probably know, Mr. Hill, over the removal of the taxi rank spaces in Banstead. I also am not convinced about this, and residents have lobbied me as the executive member at Reigate and Banstead for some more disabled parking spaces in the proposed bay. So I don't know whether you want to take that into consideration as well. I know it's a difficult one, and I know Tesco's, I'm not allowed to say that, am I? I know the supermarket on the corner there do just park there, but having that big articulated lorries parking there really makes exiting the Waitrose car park in Banstead quite difficult for elderly residents. So I'll just leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you. Kay Hammond.
Thank you, Chairman. So it takes a while to get organised. I just really want to talk, Ricky, about the Oakwood Road proposal. I certainly know that Catherine Hughes is watching this webcast and has been in contact with me about it. And I'm in support of the resident permit parking scheme. She has raised concerns with me about the number of double yellow lines that then will take place further down Oakwood Road. Oakwood Road, as you know, has the school entrance to it, and we all know what the issues are with school time parking. And I think that she just has expressed some concerns about the further restrictions further down, and just expressed concerns. Is it going to be too much of double yellow lines, which would prevent any parking? However, knowing some of their parents, I think that they probably would ignore it at school time anyway, but that's by the by. I think it's really important for us to consider this matter, and I know that obviously just explaining again to Catherine as she's watching, that this is a proposal that's going to be put forward, and there will be an opportunity for people to object if they have objections in the future. So process-wise, it is important to know that although these proposals are going forward, it doesn't necessarily mean, if there's huge objections, that it will go ahead. I will certainly support the resident permit parking. I can't get my words out this afternoon, sorry. The resident permit parking bay for those residents that will require it, because they haven't got off-road parking themselves. They're maisonettes, and it's quite right that they be given that opportunity to be able to have to pay for that parking, which we have in other parts of Hawley as well. So really, I think this is just comments rather than questions for Ricky, but I don't know whether there's anything further that you wanted to add to that. I know a huge amount of work has gone into this, and I just want to thank you as well, Ricky, for all the work that you've done in Hawley, particularly, and I look forward to finally when these proposals get put into place. I think the one comment I would, though, and the one question is in timings, because I do know in the past when we've had proposals for double yellow lines or whatever it is, there seems to be then a long delay for them being implemented. And I just wondered if you could give an idea of timescales in relation to these schemes. Thank you.
Nick Harrison, can I just remind members, please, to keep your comments as brief as possible. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I just briefly want to say I do have some tweaks, but I do note that we can submit those and get them approved outside of the meeting. Some of them involve also Councillor Jeff Harris, so perhaps I can take those up after the meeting, just to confirm that, please.
Ricky, is that okay?
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, we as you say, we do. You know, one of the recommendations is that minor changes can be made in consultation with the chairman. So if we can sort that one out afterwards. You let me know what you think you'd like to change. I'll share it around with Jeff and Barbara as well, and then we can agree the way forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jonathan, brief, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for the proposals you've put forward in Red to Least for consultation, the Red to Least and North Ellswood areas, and also for your continued persistence with contractors to paint the double yellow lines left over from previous years. I know in some locations you've had to go back 3, 4, 5 times to find the time when those cars don't fill in the gaps. I think we're almost there on a couple of areas, but thanks for your continued persistence in that.
Thank you. Michael Blacker, brief, please.
I'll be as brief as I can. Thank you very much. Yeah, just commenting on roads in Reigate Ward. Very concerned about the proposed restrictions in Summerley Avenue. There's very, very little space for parking there, including visitors parking. And I'm not sure that that's a very good idea. And the other one that concerns me is the double yellow lines are already in place down Reigate Road. They used to park anywhere between, there were about 16 to 20 cars parked there, and quite frankly most of them have got one wheel on the pavement, which allowed people to walk past on the pavement but left the road clear, and it was a wonderful traffic calming measure as well as providing additional parking. Now those cars have gone, so where are they parking? Undoubtedly they're parking outside in somebody's residential road. So I'm not keen on that, and in fact I'd like to see that reconsidered and possibly changed. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Graham.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank Ricky and the team in respect of Silverley Gardens, and I do hope that residents will appreciate that should solve all of their concerns over it. The reason why I'd like to speak is about Woodroyd Avenue. The residents have had a really torrid time over the last year, especially in respect of taxi and other parking in Woodroyd Avenue and in Oldfield Road. There are yellow lines there now, but still they are not being respected by drivers who are mostly taxis. And just to remind the committee and Hawley councillors, we've had this problem in terms of displacement certainly over the last 4 or 5 years with regard to taxi drivers in the town. We're very close to Gatwick Airport. Taxi drivers park up and have been parking up in suburban in roads near the airport for a long time. But certainly in this very, very residential area, which is Woodroyd and Oldfield, residents are subjected to some very, very unpleasant antisocial behaviour from these drivers. They're being woken up with loud music at all hours of the night, and and their feeling is, and I support it, that there really needs to be some kind of deterrent to them continuing to park. There is sufficient off-road parking in all of the houses around this area to allow double yellow lines right the way through, and this is what I would like to ask the committee to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ricky, are you happy for me to carry on?
I'm all right at the moment, thanks. Yeah.
Right. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. Ricky, first of all, to your team, it's been said, but I'll repeat it. Thank you very much for all your efforts. I know you're not going to please everybody, but two things. One is lots of yellow lines going down, but it's absolutely waste of time unless we get the enforcement right. I know that's not your responsibility. Nobody's going to do it. But unless we get appropriate enforcement of yellow lines, parking on the footpath by the police or whatever, parking on the junctions, we're going to get nowhere. So perhaps the committee can perhaps push towards getting more enforcement done at appropriate times, because it's no good turning up outside of school when the school's on holiday or on a Saturday morning. But that's my point. Without enforcement, we're all wasting our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And I must admit, I totally agree with that. Zully.
Thank you, Chairman. Just very quickly, again, to join everybody else in thanking Ricky. I think he's gold star in terms of the number of comments he has to process and the number of correspondence he receives from residents as well, which he needs to address. With regards to the A25 and in relation to Councillor Blackett's comments, I fully appreciate that there is a possibility of displacement. We are not in a happy place. Ricky has already highlighted, without more off-street parking as a true alternative for individuals who want to come into town out to work or to shop. We don't have enough road space for them. That's absolutely the case. Now, bearing that in mind, we also have to bear in mind that that stretch of the A25, the pavement is very narrow. And once people put two wheels on it, there's frankly practically no room for pedestrians to go past, certainly not safely. And as to that parking constituting something equivalent to a traffic calming measure, I will really politely disagree with Mr. Blacker. The reality is that it's a bus route and we need enough width of the road left available for buses to circulate safely. In addition, we want to free up, if at all possible, that particular cycle lane into town, again because it is part of a major route into town. So where possible, we would have three benefits emerging from these restrictions. What I also would like to remind everybody is this is a consultation, so we are putting these proposals forward and we will see what comments we receive. So this isn't the final word in that respect. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Schofield, this is my last question. I'm accepting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Ricky for the double yellow lines he looks to be extending on the A23 just ahead of Church Road before it gets to the new parking bay there, because since that parking space was put in on the bend, coaches and cars have just moved further back down the road towards the pub. So it still force cars heading south into the centre of the road and on the hatched area. So thank you for that, if I've read your plan right. Secondly, I support what Councillor Knight's been saying about Woodroyd. The issue there is the taxi drivers, as Graham said. I feel we ought to be putting as much pressure as we can on Gatwick. The taxis are there for them. They should provide space, as I believe they have done for Uber, so we don't have all these other taxi drivers causing chaos with our own residents. And I also support what Jeff Harris said about enforcement. This is a big issue of enforcement, and whether we get increased enforcement or not, because there's a cost obviously associated with that, whether it's double yellows or single yellows, these same taxi drivers who use Woodroyd as a place to park and a place to use as a toilet. I would suggest we don't have too many traffic enforcement officers out at 5 o'clock in the morning to warn them. So they may have to see what else we could do to deter these people. Thank you.
Thank you. Ricky, do you have any other comments to make?
A couple of things I will just say, then if I can, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I think the important point that was made earlier on, particularly with regard to Oakwood Road, but I think it's worth mentioning that it applies to everything, and it's been mentioned a couple of other times. These are proposals. What we're going to do next is we're going to formally advertise our intention to introduce these new restrictions. There's then the 28-day period when people can let us know what they think about them. With regard to Oakwood Road, there's lots of new extra double yellow lines in because one of the problems that people kept on talking about was traffic flow, particularly at peak times. Now, it might turn out people think that they've gone over the top, but that's fine. If they don't like it, they can tell us and we can always reduce the numbers. Very quickly, with regard to timescales, I had been hoping to be able to get the advertisement done and made and actually, put out in the newspaper and put up notices and things. Towards the plan was to try and do it the last week of November. And I've already sort of been in touch with the traffic regulation order team about doing that, and they were happy with that. There is possibly a slight problem now, which I'm quite sure you're all well aware. It's known as lockdown. If we are advertising new parking restrictions in places where people habitually park and they are no longer parking there because they're not allowed to leave their homes, it's a bit unfair to say we're going to put yellow lines where you normally park when you're not even going to know about them before they arrive. So it does depend partly on what happens with lockdown and, coming out of lockdown. It might be that we will have to push it back a bit. It's all very new. I mean, very recent, the decisions and the information about that. So I can't say for sure. I would love to have been able to keep with the timetable so that we could get these things, the ones that do end up going ahead, in on the ground, as early as possible next year. But as I say, we will have to wait and see what happens with lockdown and things. Persistence with, very quickly.
Sorry, Vicky.
Yeah, getting yellow lines in, as Jonathan Essex mentioned, yes, is a big problem. We do keep going and keep going and keep going. In fact, the first lockdown helped us. We managed to get some lines put in that we've been trying for 3 years to do in Red Hill, actually, as it happens. But we do keep going. There are some that just seem to prove impossible, but we still try. Our contractors always have the plans with them. Comments about Summerley Avenue, and there's a little space there. I am aware that I did go a little bit large there, I think, but it was based on some of the comments that we had received. Again, the residents will get the chance to have their say about that, and I think there's too many yellow lines. We won't need to put them all in. The Reigate Road, the general one on the A25, we actually had a lot of complaints from people about the fact that cars parking on the pavement meant that you couldn't get past as a pedestrian. It's been a very contentious bit of road for quite a long time. When we put in the double yellow lines on the other side, the cycling community said, well, why aren't you doing it on both sides? There's supposed to be cycle lanes there. I think it came in as a temporary measure because of the active travel. This gives everyone a chance to say what they think about it, really, in a way that they didn't have a chance before. So we will, when we advertise it, people will be able to say what they now think about it. I quite agree enforcement's important. And if we ever get comments about it, we pass it on to our colleagues at the borough's parking services team. Finally, the Woodroyd Avenue. I mean, the residents there did put in a petition for double yellow lines on both sides of the road. There is the question of enforcement overnight, which has obviously been mentioned already. We could change the proposal if the committee wanted and put the double yellow lines in. I didn't, see it as a compelling traffic management thing, but I know that the residents there have had a pretty tough time at parts in the past because of the taxi drivers. I've slight concern where taxi drivers will go, and I know that this is a problem in lots of places. But if the committee wants, I will change that then and put the double yellow lines in both roads.
Okay. Thank you. We have the recommendations on the screen. Can I give you?
You've got a couple of hands up. Sorry, I've got.
I did say that was the last question because we have a lot more to go through. And if you can contact Ricky with any other problem.
Can I just, sorry, Madam Chairman, just very quickly, could I, the one, the Woodroyd Avenue one, I would like the committee to agree that we amend it because it's quite a significant change. Little bits of, tweaks, I don't mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are we going to agree that one now then?
Yes. My comment comes out of what Ricky said rather than beforehand.
Sorry, I cannot hear you, Nick.
Chairman, I said my comment came out of what Ricky just said rather than previous questions.
Okay, carry on then.
My question is, do you intend to put notices up on lampposts nearby? Our practice has differed, I think, over the years, but are you going to do it this time?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's one of our main means of bringing it to attention of people that park there. We'll put the newspaper advert, all the information will be on the website. We'll put up street notices, and we will write to properties that are immediately next to no restrictions.
Thank you very much indeed.
I hope you could hear that because there's some rather strange background noises going on.
We are actually going to move on to the recommendations on screen. Now, can you say if you agree or you disagree?
Agreed.
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 Can I check? Are people agreeing with the addition of the last road that Ricky added as well?
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yes.
Thank you, Ricky.
Barbara, I'm really unsure that. I think Ricky has suggested that Woodroyd and Oldfield become double yellow lines. Are we agreeing to that as an amendment to these things?
Yes.
I mean, I would agree that it needs to be done for those residents. I've been involved as well, but I'm just checking that perhaps we should all put our hands up if we agree, rather than just people, because otherwise we won't be able to record who agrees and who disagrees.
Jess?
Sorry to interject.
Yeah. How we're doing voting, if there's an objection, then we can take a recorded vote. But if it's general consensus that people are agreeing to that amendment, we can take it that way.
Yes.
From the sounds of it, it seemed like people were in a general agreement that we would add that amendment to the recommendations.
Okay.
Jess, can you clarify this is an agreement that it's incorporated in the consultation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Agreed.
Right. Can we move on now? Ricky?
Just sorry, very quickly, if you remember at the very beginning, I mentioned the High Street in Banstead and the loading bay, and I know there was some discussion, but I'd like that particularly added on as well, so that's something we can go forward with afterwards. So there's the change in the High Street with the loading bay and the loading restriction, and then the change in Woodroyd and Oldfield to double yellow lines.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, appointments to task groups. Jess?
Yeah, so I'll keep this very brief. It's a report we have every year just to agree the terms of reference and the membership of our 2 task groups, plus the nomination to the outside body, which previously was the East Surrey Community Safety Partnership. It's now disbanded, and it will now be the Reigate and Banstead Community Safety Partnership. All the nominations are on that slide, so if you're happy to agree it, that's fine.
Agreed.
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 I'm not supposed to vote. Apologies.
Agreed.
Item 12. Item 12 is decision tracker. This is just a standing item. Do members have any comments on the decision tracker? Brief comments, please.
Yes, Jonathan did from earlier.
Jonathan.
Thank you. Just coming in. Had a discussion with Ruth before the meeting, and we were looking at the minutes of the last meeting and how the actions for the minutes were taken forward. And then we looked at the action tracker at the end, and it doesn't appear that any of the actions from the last minutes have made it onto the action tracker. So I don't know if you want me to suggest what the actions are and then we discuss them, or whether Jess has got a list of what the actions are from the minutes that we need to see what the progress of them are. But I think if we're going through the actions, it makes sense for us to also consider the actions from the meeting 6 months ago.
Yeah, potentially I've just missed some off there. How many are there? Are there lots of things I've missed?
So you may disagree or agree whether these were actions or not. I don't know, but I would go through on page 2 of the agenda on the A217 road safety work south of Reigate. There was information to be sent out to members. I can't remember seeing anything, so I think that's outstanding. There was something about then if I turn over the RBBC petition about M25 noise, which runs over onto page 3, and there was going to be a feedback to the committee on the outcome of a meeting, which I guess may or may not have happened because of COVID. If you then carry on to page 5 at the very top, there was a clarification on support to local schools for road safety and sustainable travel, which was going to come back to us, and I'm not sure that's happened yet. And then if you move then on to page 7, there was chasing up a priority of a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign in Ellswood, which I would flag at the bottom. I don't know if that would be an action or not, but I mean, those are the ones I've picked up. There might be others that other members have picked up as well.
Okay, I've made a note of them. I don't know if Zena's got her hand up, so she might have something else to add.
Jonathan, can you take your hand out? Oh, please. Zena?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Essex, for those. So I think there's a difference between the decision tracker and looking at the actions. Now, the actions that you've just mentioned, I have definitely seen those going out, and most of those are through our road safety and active travel manager. And I have definitely seen the details of the scheme for the A217 safety scheme that has been distributed, and maybe, Chairman, you've also seen that being distributed. I think maybe the way forward is, if you wouldn't mind, if members would put forward what they feel that they would have liked some feedback on, that they feel perhaps they haven't had that feedback, because that's quite different from the decision tracker, which is saying what's been decided, and we can make sure that you indeed have had that information that you've requested, or that was there as an action. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. So we're going to note this.
Yeah, Barbara, I think Jonathan might want to come back.
Jonathan.
Sorry, my understanding was it was a decision and action tracker, and if we had identified something for an action in the meeting and put it in the minutes, then the easiest way to track whether that had been happened or not would be to put it in the action tracker at the end. And we've done that in the past for actions. I remember myself and Natalie Bramwell both been concerned about things like lorry movements down Pendleton Road and stuff like that. And otherwise, there's no way of us following up to make sure something's actually happened. So if it's possible to take those items there at least and put them formally through the tracker, because I'm not sure all of them have been taken on so far.
Okay.
Yes. Bob, can I just come back? You may have noticed we've done a little bit of work on the tracker over the summer, so it has changed slightly on how it looks, and we are trying to record more of the formal decisions or committee things rather than the little bits of action. So it's more decisions rather than actions that we're taking. So I know what you've said, and we can get that information to you, but for future we are trying to keep the decision tracker to formal decisions that the committee are making rather than little actions or things that you may have asked for, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Janet.
With respect, it wasn't things that just individuals have asked for. It's things that we as a committee had asked for and agreed in a meeting and been recorded in the minutes. Maybe that's a moot point, but sometimes little things are the hardest things to get forward to follow through and actually make happen. So that's why I raised that.
Okay.
Nick,
I think all members need to switch off their microphones.
Yes. Can everyone mute themselves? Okay, that's better.
Nick, you had something to say?
I did. I've had an email from Councillor Adamson, who's been trying for about 3/4 of an hour to get into the system, but was unable to do so. So if you could lodge her apologies, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so can we move on to note the decision tracker?
Agreed.
Item 13, forward plan.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed.
No.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Item 13, forward programme. Just to note the contents.
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Agreed.
Perfect.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you everyone for your time today. The time is now 4:07 and the meeting is closed and we will now stop recording.